Hello.
Hello.
What's going on, geeks and geekettes? It's another special edition of the Countdowns to the Geekcast. My name is Ted, aka Steady, and joining me on this very special interview is the one and only Retro Ray.
What's going on, guys? Let's get the scream on.
And we got a very special guest. You might not know his face, but you've seen his work portraying Ghostface in Scream 1 and Scream 2. With us tonight is the one and only Lee Waddell. What's going on, sir?
Thanks for having me in, guys. It's an honor and it's a privilege, and I really appreciate you guys uh, having me in. I mean, people out there that watch podcasts and listen to podcasts, they get to see the end product. We're gonna have a blast. We're gonna talk about all kinds of cool Scream stuff and stories. But you know, trying to get the three of us to work out our schedule to finally get it to work is just it was incredible. And people don't realize how many balls were in the air to make this happen. So glad I'm here. Thank you so much for having me in. It's a great time, a great honor. So appreciate
Definitely.
you guys.
We appreciate you, and this is such an honor. And it's gonna sound cheesy the entire night, so we're gonna apologize just right off the bat. Scream holds a very special place in our hearts. I don't know. Ray probably feels the same way, but like Scream was not only sort of coming out in the right time for me, particularly because I was a teenager, but it was also a huge evolution in the horror genre. You weren't dealing with immortal or unbeatable psycho killer or a demon or something that was possessed. It was a very raw, grounded film set in a suburban town, a small community, and it was just unlike anything else that kind of came before it. So we want to first off just thank you for your work, for the entire team, but kind of take us back a little bit and just first kind of tell us what it maybe meant to you to be a part of this project. I know it was 27, 28 years ago, but what did it mean to you to be a part of this project? You had this super talented young cast. It was a Wes Craven Dimensions production. Just what did it kind of feel like, or what do you sort of remember from being a part of that production?
Well, you got to remember back to so we shot that in '95, right?
Hmm.
And I'd been a working stuntman already. I'd done a bunch of Wes Craven shows. I was, Wes Craven's stunt coordinator, second director, a guy by the name of Tony Caesar, who's an icon within himself. He's done all the big heavy stunts and stunt coordinated a bunch of stuff. So you got to remember that 1995. I'm a working stunt guy, right? So I get to dial up. Hey, come on up, and work on the show for a little bit. We'll have some fun. Blah blah blah. It's with Wes. I'm like, hey, I'm all over it. And so we're just making a movie. I had no idea, and I don't think anybody had an idea at that time it was going to do what it did. And here we are, almost 30 years later, and we're still talking about it. And we got 6 spin-offs out of this thing, and seven's on the way. And you know, I hope I'm in a position to talk about it another 30 years from now. So, I mean, maybe the franchise will have that kind of run. I mean, take a look at Halloween. It's 45 years this year. This year, right? Huge.
Absolutely,
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So back in
absolutely.
the day, I'm a working stunt guy. I show up. I just want to do a good job for the stunt coordinator Tony. I want to do a good job for Wes. I've worked on a bunch of Wes's shows. You know, I just want to show up, do my job, get paid, have fun, and we're off to the next show. So when we were shooting this, we didn't know it was going to do what it did. We didn't know, we're just making a movie. Let's go make a movie and have fun. So if I had any inclination back at that time that it was going to do this, I would have stolen every mask on that set. So, I would have come out of there with tons of memorabilia. But
Man, yeah.
but yeah, I didn't have any idea. Maybe somebody else did, but not me. I was just a working stunt guy. I'm falling on my head and having a good time.
I know you say that, you treat it like a job, you want to do good work, but um, you're kind of the focus, right? Even though you got a mask on, now your movement, your body, the way you run, everything now is sort of a focal point. Does that kind of hit you? Does that kind of change the way you prepared for this role? Did that kind of kind of make you shift your thought process now that you're kind of in majority of this movie and you are the guy?
Yeah, so let's when we shot Scream One, obviously we had that opening sequence, which is iconic, and I'm super proud of that work. I'm glad I'm glad I did that, and it's an honor, and it's great. I mean, what a great feather in my cap in my stunt career to have that opening sequence. But when we were shooting Scream One, we had the ability to shoot in sequence, which very seldom happens in film. You don't get to a lot of people don't realize that when you grab a script and go, you know, scene one, boom, films almost never get shot in sequence. Well, that first 2 or 3 weeks we shot in sequence. And so day one, Scream One, take one, boom, we're off to the races. And I'm on set, and I sit down with Wes and Tony Caesar, and I'm like, "So tell me about this character." And I'm already in wardrobe. I just don't have the hood. I don't have my hood on, my mask on. And Wes is like, he moves like a phantom. He was very distinct and definitive about that. I'm like, really? I said, so he's swift and he knows what he's doing. He goes, yeah. So that was the direction. That was the initial direction that Wes gave me, and that's the direction I ran with it. And there might have been some nuances throughout the
Sure,
you know,
sure.
but for the most part, Phantoms, at least the way I portrayed them, are very swift and very aggressive, and they move with authority and discipline. They're going from A to B with purpose, right? And then I think as the scripts and the characters got diluted over later film, 3, 4, it got I couldn't even watch him because it was just such an ass clown. I'm like, can't he's tripping over his own shadow? Just where did this come from? So because it was so far off of what Wes gave me that direction at. Whatever. So I like the newer one. I like how the Six portrayed Ghostface again, because in my mind, even though I started that character and built that character, Ghostface is its own entity, right? Even though it's supposed to be played by different characters in the films, right? It's still Ghostface in among himself is his own entity. Does that make sense?
Oh no, completely. Yeah. And when you talk about Six, that was played by Max Leferrier, and Max said he went, did his homework. He went out and probably watched your films mostly because, like you said, there was sort of a going back to sort of that brutalness, sort of that directness. He's very clever. Ghostface, he's such a clever villain, clever slasher, and I think that's what makes him both unique and also very appealing. Because you don't really know what he's gonna do, you don't know what he's thinking, and it's just fantastic, fantastic. Ray, what do you got,
Yeah.
Ray? Oh, go ahead. What?
Well, I mean, I believe what you know uh, Ted said is that Ghostface was. It wasn't like a Michael Myers, and it wasn't like a Jason. He was one step ahead of his prey.
Yeah, he
You know what I
actually
mean?
he
So
he actually moves and runs. So not to take anything off from Jason and Michael.
yeah. No, but I mean, like you already knew, like okay, you kind of had. I don't know. I guess this is my what I think. Ghostface had his plan on how he was going to kill her. So he already knew her escape routes. He knew, okay, she's going to go out this way or vice versa. So he already knew how to cut her off or cut whoever he was going to kill off.
Mhm.
So he already cut off the route. You know what I mean? So it was like he was a different type of killer that took it to that next level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I totally agree because I guess in a sense, Ghostface is more of you know I wouldn't classify him as psychotic, like Jason and Michael Myers. Those guys are these enigmas, man. They're just this force that always is moving, is
Yeah.
always coming. They don't have to, but they're just always. They never stop. They're always there.
Yeah.
I think Ghostface was much more of a. He was definitely a much more technical thinking, entity. Right.
Yeah.
So I'll agree with that. I like that, and you know, I like how he kind of came back around in six. Um, at least let me put it this way: I like how Max portrayed him, and hopefully, I get to meet Max one day from an old stunt guy to a young stunt guy. So I appreciated how he portrayed that character because it was probably the closest rendition to what Wes and I talked about 30 years ago.
It's not to get too far off subject, but Max had a very similar story to you. Stunt guy doing work, he's on a set, and just one day while he's working, they happen to mention, "Oh, by the way, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be Ghostface," and he had no idea. So it's great how it feels like they're giving you guys this really valuable moment to really shine, and you put so much work into your careers and everything that you guys do. Just seeing you guys get those moments and those opportunities, it just feels like it's just fantastic.
And I appreciate that, because stunt guys, men or women, you know, we're unsung. We still are, always will be. I mean, and
Oh,
I'm
for
an old
sure.
school guy, right? So I came into this business, with like Dick Warlock and Tony Caesar and Ted White and all these old freaking iconic, just tough as nails dudes. These are the guys that I came into the business, hustling and pursuing and wanting to work for. And those are old school guys, no nonsense, you know. And I didn't get into the business for the fame at all. I got in it for the money. Basically, I got into it
Paycheck.
for the adrenaline. I liked making movies. So it has all these components, but the fame part and autographs and all that, not even in my wheelhouse. And
Gotcha.
I don't have a lot of memorabilia from my career. Obviously, I have film, right? If I want to go watch myself work, I'll go plug in. I could go punch in the Lost World and watch me ride the dinosaur. Great. So I have plenty memories in that aspect. But my wall, with the exception of the Ghostface stuff here, this for the studio, um, I don't have a whole lot of memorabilia slash uh, autographs. You don't see a lot of pictures of me and the people that I had doubled. That's just kind of like the old school guy that I am. And so
Absolutely.
it's fun to see that now. I mean, yeah, Max got the nod, but man, here we are 6 films later, he knows he's going to play Ghostface, and he knows the weight that comes with that character and the notoriety that's going to come with that character. So like I said, hopefully I'll get a chance to meet him, and I can talk, off in a corner and you know hang out and talk with no cameras and people and just talk about things, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if it's good on him, and I'm sure when he got the nod, it's like, you're the guy. He's got to go, oh crap, because there's a lot of and he did a fantastic job. He did great. So good
uh,
on him. I'm really proud of
sp-
him.
Speaking of stunts, do you have any war stories, things that maybe were super challenging to pull off in either of those first two movies? Maybe a stunt that didn't go as planned.
Yeah, so like anybody I don't care if you're cosplaying or you're in a stunt guy or whatever, anybody that's actually worked, put on the robe, put on the mask, and tried to actually hit marks and work, right? Super difficult. I mean, you put on a mask and you can't see. That's just terrible visibility, terrible peripheral pain. They're hot. You can't breathe. You can't see. There's
Oh
nothing
man.
fun about that wearing that hood. It's user unfriendly. So
Hey,
you know, making sure you hit marks and stuff like that was a challenge. Like the first time I had the robe on, those are big, long. They're actually pretty heavy, really. Um, yeah, I don't have my clothes, but I'd grab it. They got some weight to them, and they're cut long, right? You've seen them.
Right, right.
And they're like, and Wes is like, okay, and now you're gonna run, and I'm like, I'm gonna trip over myself, much less run. And so there's like these little tricks you just catch on the fly about how to kind of like, hey, you you hike up the robe a little bit so when you start running, it stays up on your kneecaps as you're running, and you don't fall over on your face and make an idiot of yourself and things like that. There's all these little tricks and hacks you do when you're wearing that whole wardrobe. But yeah, wearing that mask and trying to hit marks and not hurt Drew or any of the other actors, and this is like wow. So it was a handful. I couldn't say working in the mask was fun. It came with the territory, but it was not fun.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So in working in the stunt, what actually? Because you know how everybody starts off like their love for movies, they want to be an actor, some want to be directors. What made you want to do the stunt part of working
Yeah,
in
so
movies?
I mean, um, I was so like I got involved with film and making film through photography like at an early age. I always loved photography, and then I did my first film like in eighth or ninth grade as an assignment. That was a horror film, and I started. I
Nice.
liked that creative process. You know, loved the camera work and all that stuff. And then when I came out of high school, it's like by and I grew up on action and horror, and I'm like that looks fun, and I loved adrenaline, and you know, I finally I think I grew out of it finally, but uh, so it had all the elements. I get to make movies. I get to get this really cool adrenaline. You know, you get to make a few dollars. And it had everything I wanted to. So that's the reason. That's how that evolved. So, but it was really, acting never was a deal for me. And I don't mind doing a bit part and throw some lines out there, but you know, didn't really want to do that much acting. But I still wanted to make movies. And
I
be
love it.
yeah. So that's kind of how that whole thing evolved.
I mean, that means you got to sacrifice your body for that. I mean, that's got to hurt. I mean, and then get up the next day and repeat it. I
Uh,
give you props, man. That's got to be.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, I was just a good, solid working stunt guy. I wasn't the best guy in town. I wasn't the worst guy in town. I was just a good, solid guy. Show up, do my job, go home, you know, do it. But you do that for 20, 30 years, and I got tired of waking up sore and ice bags and Advil and all that crap. And you know, I I'm in still really good shape with very little creaks for my age and for my career, but I still there's a few that are lingered that always have, but all in all, I'm doing really well because a lot of guys my age that are still in the business or finally retired, they're just put together with hardware. I don't so far knock on wood, I hadn't had
Dang.
that happen to me. So, but yeah, I do not miss waking up always sore.
I
Yeah,
believe it.
Imagine.
I believe
yeah.
it. From those Scream films, while you're portraying Ghostface, were there any moments that really stuck with you? Any scenes that you just have stuck with you all these years? Anything just really memorable that stayed with you?
Well, I mean, the opening scene of Scream One was iconic, and it was great to work with Drew. I had worked with her on some previous shows, so it was good. And she's such a pro. I mean, she's a great human being. Really appreciated her company. So that was a fun opening sequence, and it's so huge that I cannot not forget about it. Not that I would. It was just a great sequence, right? Um, and then working with Henry Winkler, right? Um, he played the
Oh my
principal, so
God! Yeah.
I whacked him. And it's probably the only time, and I own it. It's kind of a cute, funny story. It's embarrassing as heck, but you got to remember Henry Winkler, right? During the 70s, 80s. I mean, he was the guy,
Fonz.
right? The Fonz, right? So I grew up on Happy Days. I don't know how many seasons they did, 12, 18, some ridiculous number, right?
Right.
He was the guy, and super talented. And so the first time that we're getting ready to shoot this scene, I come in and say hi, and Ghostface, whatever, right? I geeked out on him. I fanboyed out on him so hard, and because so here we are I'm getting ready to stab him, and he's a little bit older at that point in his career, and I didn't want to, hurt him, so to speak, and not that I would, but like when you're throwing a fight with a stunt guy, you can get physical and give him some energy to work with, right, without hurting each other. But if
Sure.
you give him that energy, right, you know, and you bounce each other around and great fight. Well, here I am going like this is the Fonz, and so I go to the first time I've stabbed him on this is like I just wasn't giving that aggression that he needed, and so he gave me he gave me some motivation as only he could, which actually just he pissed me off enough to where I could kind of like want to whip his ass, and he was so great and such a pro, and he gave me some good acting tips on the fly on the moment that I still use today, right? So
Wow.
um, that's how cool of a guy he was. But I was, and I owned it too. I'm like, I just geeked out. It was just like, wow, it was cute at the same time, but we still had to get this shot done and everything. And so it was funny. That's the only time in a career because I mean, I've worked with a bunch of actors and actresses and big ones and little ones, and that doesn't bother me. That's I don't get starstruck on people at all. And man, for some reason, that was the one. So it was embarrassing as hell, but we got through and had a good time with it, a good laugh on it.
I don't blame you at all. Hey, the Fonz,
Yeah,
baby. I
exactly.
I I would have done the same, Lee. Don't
I
blame you at
did.
all.
I geeked out. I own it. It's like, man, that's the only time I ever did that in my career. Out of all the movies and all the, actors and actresses and even directors. And yeah, he got the short straw, I guess. I don't know. It was pretty funny.
That's pretty cool, man. Because that's the thing is a lot of people, some people have their people that they geek out, or a person they want to meet that they never get a chance to meet or work
Yeah,
with, and it was something that you were able to do. That's
yeah, and
freaking awesome.
so I got the honor of killing, killed Henry Winkler. I killed the Fonz. There you go. Not a lot of guys, he didn't die that many. He doesn't die very often on film, so I got to be one of those guys that killed him. And
That
yeah,
is
it's
freaking awesome.
some of the directors I've worked with throughout the years, and it was such a blessed career. I really enjoyed the run, and now here we are again, 30 years later, and still talking about obviously Scream stuff, and I still get to talk to people about it and sign cool autographs and take cool pictures and do podcasts with you guys. And it's I'm very blessed. It's really cool to be able to kind of, I wouldn't say restart my career because I do not want to do stunts again. Uh, but to still be involved with film and the historical aspects of film and stuff like that. So I'm really enjoying this process at this time. So who knows how long this chapter is, but man, while I'm doing it and I'm having fun, I'm going to grab it with both hands and just crush it.
How does it feel that you have people who grew up that were teenagers like Ted
Mm-hmm.
and me, and they bring their kids to see you in person because they're getting into that point when their kid is getting into horror, and they're like, now they get to meet the Ghostface. How does it feel when you see the kids and then you see the mom, the
So
dad?
that's really cool actually because it's generational at this point, right? The film is old enough now to like Ted, you're right, you're a teenager, right? And 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 do you have kids?
I have a teenage son
All
who
right,
loves the Scream films. Yeah.
right, and loves horror. So it's second generation. So that's really cool. So when I'm out at these cons and these events and I'm meeting these people, they'll be like, oh, you know, as a teenager, you wrecked my whole senior year or something like that. I didn't sleep for a week, and I'm laughing and then but then I had my mom watch it. So here I'm talking to mom, grandma, and then their kid, right? So I could have two or three generations. And what is horrifying, pun intended, is when I'll be signing stuff for folks and talking and having this really great interaction, and they're like, "Oh, and you know, and she just loves your character." I'm like, and little kids right there. I'm like, "Tell me your 5-year old has not seen this movie. It is not 5-year old appropriate." You know, and they're like, "No, not yet." I'm like, "Good. Maybe when they're about 14, go down that road. They can love the character, I'll sign their stuff, but please don't show them this movie." You know, and so it's really fun to meet multi generational families that watch Scream. And it
Yeah.
started off with the first one, or maybe they didn't jump into the franchise until like 3, 4, or 5, right?
Yeah.
But then they back up and they take it from the
Yeah,
beginning to see how it all started. You know
Yeah.
that
They
which, and I really like that too because when they come of age, well, let's watch 3. Let's watch 4, let's watch 5, or maybe somebody just now got in that's jumped in at 6, right? So now they go all the way
true.
back to the beginning to watch the lineage. So I
what do
really
you
love doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you think Scream has done to sort of impact the genre? Or if kind of a double question, how have you personally seen the horror genre evolve since the 90s?
So, I mean, great question. And when Scream was first written and I first got a crack at the script, um, it was when Kevin Williamson wrote that with and Wes. They all talked about it. It was very targeted. They go, hey, we want this demographic of people. It was that 18-24. It was targeted towards that, right? And then they broke new ground where they were talking about other movies, right? They were talking about horror movies within a horror movie and
Oh,
about the
sure.
4 rules you can't break, with Jamie Kennedy and his character and all that. I mean, they broke a bunch of ground. And, it's like when you're making a movie, you can't look at the camera in a sense, but they did. So they broke the mold and said, now we're going to rewrite this. And they did. And then if you look at a film past that, it's not uncommon to see them reference, a film within a film.
Absolutely.
So that's the first time that I know of, at least from my knowledge base or lack of, that a film was actually mentioned, or multiple films were actually mentioned within a film of itself. And the way that
Ah,
Jamie Kennedy, Randy's character, mocked, because mocked how people's like, no, you don't answer the door, no, da 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 da. It's like everybody knows that. Every horror fan that's a horror fan knows the 4 rules before he said it, but yet he said it. It's never been done before, and
yeah.
so it took it. It kind of knocked down some pillars of preconceived and the way that movies were written, right? Not necessarily film, but the way that they were written, and they knocked a few things over. It was really great because that's why, in my opinion, it was so successful because here we are. You take an A-list actress at the time, Drew Barrymore, biggest thing in town. She was the
Sure.
heavy hitter, right?
Right.
So look at where she was at that time in her career, as compared to now. Now she's like Oprah 2.0. She's crushing it, right? She's so busy now she
She
can't even
sure
see stuff,
is.
right? But back then, so she's at the height of her career, right in that timeline. They get her to sign on, and they whacked her in the first 5 minutes.
Gutter.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm
didn't
like,
expect
man,
that.
what are you thinking, Wes? They kill her. And I was like, what a brilliant move.
Yeah.
You know,
Shocking.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely. And it left the viewers like, wait a minute, I came to see this because, you figure she's the heroine. She runs the whole gamut, the whole movie.
She's
No,
on the cover of the poster
yeah,
twice.
yeah, exactly. And like she shows up, you're expecting her to like be you know, the heroine, and no, she gets whacked. And I did it first 10 minutes, and we're off. And people are like going, "Huh?" And not only that, you got to remember back in that time frame. I mean, if it wasn't for some of the producers going back to the ratings board and going, "No, this is a comedy," they were gonna like NC-17 triple X this thing. I mean, it was that heavy.
Wow.
Yeah, it
It
almost
was,
didn't get.
yeah.
Yeah. So it almost didn't get a rating because it was so horrific. Because here you are killing kids with their guts hanging out from trees. Right? And then the town council didn't want us filming it, and I mean, it just about didn't get made several times. A lot of people don't realize that Wes was shooting all night, editing during the day to get the dailies so he could get it down to the studios to prove to the studios that this was a good film. I mean, they wanted to shut us down 2 weeks in. He was scrambling. The first 2 weeks of shooting, he was getting about 2 hours sleep at night.
Wow.
So do you think that's the reason why y'all filmed in order so that he can prove to them that
I don't
it was
know.
worth
That's a good
making?
question. I don't know. You know, I don't know if that was the motivation by doing that. I could, because there's so much pre-production that goes into making a movie, as you guys know. It's not like going,
Yeah.
well, we need to sell this movie to the studio, so we're going to mix up our schedule and shoot in sequence. I don't think it went down like that. I could be wrong. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't. I was a stunt guy. That was way above my pay grade. I just showed up and had fun.
Yeah, because when you think about it, it was at a point where he was taking it to that next level. So he pretty much was kind of having to prove to the industry that, because at that time horror films were kind of phasing out to an extent. They weren't, at that point anymore the way they were
Yeah,
back
it
in the
wasn't like
time,
80s
in
horror.
the
Yeah,
early
80s
80s.
horror was different.
Yeah. So I think he was literally, like you said, he was breaking that mold and creating a new genre of horror,
Yeah, he could have been.
and which he knocked it out of the park with it.
Yeah, it was a
In my
grand slam.
opinion.
It opened, it brought in a whole new mindset on how to make horror, and not technically, but um, you know, how to develop a storyline and a character. And Wes had this really cool knack about pulling really new up and coming talent. I mean,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
take a look at historically his films. Like my first Wes Craven show was Nightmare on Elm Street, right? People forget that was Johnny Depp's first movie.
Yeah.
So, I remember Johnny on set. So, and he just had an eye for talent. He really did.
So what did you do in Nightmare on
So
Elm
I did
Street?
I was just like an ND stunt guy, nondescript. I did a lot of safety. And then one of the biggest things I did on that show is Tony Caesar did, he double angled in a couple scenes, but we did a scene where Freddy catches fire down in the basement and runs up the stairs. Right.
Oh yeah.
So when you do fire, so I was Tony's setup man. I was responsible for getting him put into his fire suit and putting on the fuel and making sure everything ran good, and it did. But that was a serious fire is real serious. I did a lot of it. Tony taught me how to do it, and I did a
Oh, yeah.
bunch, and it's serious business because you go from comfortable to being burned up in about a second.
For sure.
Damn.
So that was, and then I just helped them just on safety of other stuff. But that fire scene was important and serious, and a lot of responsibility goes into fire scenes.
I bet. For sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that movie, I remember to this day. I mean, when I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street, I couldn't sleep for like 2 weeks because I was afraid to go to sleep because I was afraid to have fucking nightmares. That's how good that movie was.
And yeah, and that was just typical Wes. That was Wes doing Wes.
Yeah.
Uh,
But then later down the line, I love Freddy.
Yeah, I enjoyed Nightmare 1. It was good. 2 was all right, and then so I enjoyed that character of Freddy. I enjoyed Ghostface. That was another great character. I enjoyed that one. Um, yeah, there's a Wes hitting home runs was not uncommon. Even though when we're in the middle of making his films, we're just all making low budget movies, right?
Yeah.
You know,
So, what horror movie is? I mean, I know Scream is going to be right there, but as you growing up as a kid or teen, what horror movie was it that really got you like freaked out?
well, I grew up on Universal, right? So I grew up on Lugosi and all those guys and Cheney and I grew up on black and white horror. That's where I started. Me and my dad would watch black and white horror. So I loved the original Frankenstein, Dracula. My all-time favorite horror film is Creature from the Black Lagoon.
very nice.
Right?
Nice.
Boom, love that film. And I was totally mesmerized by that creature and that character, right? And I just was so bummed. Like I'd be watching that movie. I'm like, all I wanted to do was see the creature from the lagoon again. I could care less about all the other. I'm like, screw story. I just want to see that, right?
Get
I
to
want
the
to see that.
monster.
I wanted to not only I want to see that character, but and it played out later in my career is like I think one of the big driving factors, the reason I started doing so much water work in my career was because of the scenes of when the creature was in the water underneath. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So if anybody had, what was your influence on that? Is like Rico, right? It was the guy that did all the underwater stuff. Those sequences when he was in the lagoon that showed him swimming around. Love those sequences. And then,
Absolutely.
I mean, it was filmed great. The way, I mean, it just you didn't see it wasn't cloudy or nothing, but it just seemed so perfect for swimming in the costume. I can imagine how hard it was to swim in that sea.
I'm surprised that guy didn't drown twice. But and so between that and probably some Jacques Cousteau, I loved water work. Still do. I love being under the water. But yeah,
Nice.
Creature from the Black Lagoon is probably the one that really was instrumental on setting the hook on some standards and some stuff that I loved. You know what movie that really got me that I still don't like to this day? At least the scene is, remember the flying monkeys in Wizard of Oz?
Oh,
You're not
Yeah,
alone. You're not
so
alone.
exactly. So I'm just a little kid, man, and that stupid flying monkey stuff happened. Man, I hated that. Hated the flying monkeys. To this day, I hate the flying monkeys. I can watch Wizard of Oz, and it's great. And then when those flying monkeys come in, I'm just like, I hated those as a kid, and I hate them now.
Still hate him now. Yeah, man.
Because I like the flying monkeys, So
Yeah, you're not alone. Those things are
that's funny.
terrifying.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know what it was. It was just a monkey, but man, them flying monkeys screwed with me.
you were talking about Wes a little bit, and I was wondering, what was it like to sort of work under Wes as a director? Do you have any examples of like, his creative process, anything that really like, took you back, or you even the things that you said that you kind of learned from him?
So like Wes, people don't realize. A lot of people didn't realize that. He used to be a professor, so he had extremely high IQ, right? Great sense of humor, very dry. He would tell a joke on Monday, and I'd laugh on Friday, and you know, and we had some good laughs over the years together and whatnot. Very cool cat. Never saw him lose his temper. I've been around plenty of Hollywood directors that throw stuff and yell and just, it's not a very good way to conduct yourself as a human being. And Wes was opposite of that. Cold, just cool, easygoing cat. And so I liked his directing style in that sense. Because I did, I did everything from Nightmare on Elm Street 1 all the way through Scream 2 with Wes. So anything in his bank, I did them all, with the exception of um, what was the one he shot down there in the Dominican? Um, Serpents in the Rainbow, right?
Huh?
oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the only out of that X number of years, how many they are were. That's the only film I didn't work on from Wes was that one. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, that's good, man. You got to work with someone
Legend.
who's iconic
Yeah, and
and
for his
legend.
time, underappreciated, and nobody really understood him until after he had died. And here we are, 28 years later, we're talking about Wes, right? You got to remember that.
Yep.
That was Scream. So Nightmare was what, 84,
Yeah.
86. When was 80?
Yep.
When was Nightmare done? First one, 84. I think it was somewhere like that.
I think it was 84. Yeah.
So um, so I did everything with Wes from 84 through 97, 98, somewhere there.
It's
So
fantastic.
yeah, I had a good run with him.
So cons that you're going to be doing this year, I'm pretty sure you
Man,
got quite a bit. What do
I'm
you?
stacked. I'm so blessed, and it is. And like we were talking about a little bit earlier, I love the fans, and I love talking with them and interacting with them, and meeting generational fans at this point. So, you know, when I do these cons, it's a lot of fun. Traveling and all that stuff, but it's really about the interaction with the fan base. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember, us three and bazillions of everywhere, all the way around, we're all horror fans.
Oh yeah.
You got Michael Myers horror fans, you got Freddy horror fans, you got Jason horror fans. At the end of the day, we are horror fans, and that's the common thread, right? And so it doesn't matter what your genre of horror is per se, but we're all horror fans. And what I what I really like about the horror fans and the Scream Nation is what I call, Scream Ghostface fans,
Yeah.
is I've not been to a con yet where there's any been like drama, you know, and I used to ride a lot. I used to ride my Harley a lot, and man, I would go to bike weekends and all this other stuff, and there was there's definitely some drama going down. Then that vibe doesn't, and I still love the bikers, and hanging out with those guys and whatnot, and they're cool cats. But there's nothing like that when you're doing cons with horror fans. It's kind of like this big love fest. Everybody's just hanging out and vibing and having fun and telling stories and getting autographs and tattoos, and hanging out with the vendors. Man, there's some beautiful vendors out there. Those artists that, and the creative process out there, incredible,
For
incredible.
sure.
So, I really like doing the cons because that connects me with the fan base, and in a sense, that as long as Ghostface is still doing Ghostface, I take my job of the responsibility of that, putting those stories and keeping Wes's character alive, and all that. I take it very seriously, but I have fun with it. It's a great quote unquote job.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm one of those cats that I forgot what con was out last year, but the con closed at 10, and I still had a line along with the rest of the guys, Jamie Kennedy and Matt Miller, and the guys from Scream. Um, I was still signing at 12 o'clock. That's how the lines were. So I'm like, I don't care, unless they kick us out of the convention center. I'm like, then I'll just take a pile of pictures and a pen, and we'll go have a tailgate party, right? And we'll just take it there because I won't let the fan base down. I mean, if there's somebody has that hard-earned money, that might be their only deal for the year, right? They bring their family, they all get to go hit the vendors and go grab one or two autographs and do whatever. That might be their one big Yahoo for the year, And if they're gonna take that hard-earned income and come and see me, then they're going to get the Lee Waddell experience. I'm going to take time to sign their stuff and take some pictures and tell them some stories, And if that line is 100 people deep, I still want to take at least a couple of minutes to find out what they're being. It's just like, here we are talking about Scream and what you were doing to, as a teenager, what you were doing, raising, and we're having this cool little symbiotic exchange of a piece of history that was 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So when I'm dealing with fans at the cons and hanging out with them, and it's the same thing. But imagine doing that 1,000 times. It's a blast. I love them. And to sit there and have it generational, and
Yeah.
sign people's tattoos, and they go get my signature, which is crazy. Imagine having somebody crazy enough to take my signature and go get a tattoo. It happens all the time. I wish it wouldn't.
So cool.
It was just like, man, that's crazy. And so, like, if they do
Yeah.
that, I'm like, send me pictures. It's going to go on the website. It's going on the Instagram, and I just blast it all over the place because it's just so dang funny.
That's
And
amazing.
it's, but that's how cool fans are. That's the Scream Nation.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it, man. It's so fun. So yeah, I'm super blessed to be doing this, and I as much fun as it is, and it's a great time. I take it seriously, and I want to give those fans what they need and want. If they're crazy enough to come out there and stand in lines and see me, then absolutely, I'm going to love them. So, but yeah, so coming up, starting in August, I go to Chicago. We have Flashback Weekend coming up there, which is first part of August, and then spin right around, head back home to Houston, hang out there at the Houston Horror Fest for that weekend, which is 10, 11, 12, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. And then take off from there, shoot over to Denver for Denver CreepyCon, Crypticon. And then hang out there. That's the third week, like 18, 19, 20. I think I have the last weekend off, but I'm supposed to be going down and doing a big podcast hosting thing that last weekend, if it happens. So, and then that's August. September, I have, super cool thing. September, this is a fun one. So there's a great convention out in Southern California, in Ontario, California, so which is basically east of LA, 45 minutes. And it's called the Creep IE, which stands for Inland Empire Creep IE Con.
Okay.
Those guys had a con in February of this year. They invited me out to with the rest of the Scream team, and it was just incredible. They sold that thing out. It was just full throttle fun for 2 days, and lots and lots of fun. And it was such a great success across the board, from the vendors through the celebrity, through all that they're like, hey, we're going to do it again in September.
Sign you up.
Well, yeah, and people don't realize, or maybe they do, is that I can't. the promoters don't want to have the same celebrity every time, or
Sure.
year after year or every 6 months, because they want to bring, like, okay, we did a whole bunch of Scream. Well, let's go do a bunch of Nightmare, or let's go do a bunch of, you know, Jason, or a bunch of Mike Myers, right? So they want to bring in that chunk. So I was, I was totally blown away when they reached out to me just the other day and said, hey, we're going to do a special one-off screening of Scream One in 16 millimeter film stock, right? And I'm like, ooh, you got my attention, right? I have not seen Scream projected in film since the premiere in '96,
Wow.
right? And I'm like, I want to absolutely be a part of that. So there's this great little .org nonprofit that they teamed up with called the Frida Cinema, and Frida Cinema actually has a cinema house, and they project, they screen classic movies on celluloid, on film stock, right? And you know what's cool about film is it's kind of like listening to old vinyl records. There's a certain feel, certain warmth to it, certain look that's not digital, because digital is great, but it's kind of flat if you think about it, right? It's super crystal clear. It's like, when you look at 4K or 8K, when it's actually projected at that amount of information, you see it, and it's almost unnatural, because we don't even see it in 4K. Then when you see it projected that crystal clear, and you're like, man, that's, you know. So I
It's
cannot
jarring.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of jarring. So I can't wait to be a part of this and go out and host it. We're gonna do so it's only one day only. I'm gonna go ahead and do shameless plug for it right now. And it's September 23rd. It's called the Creep Econ Aftermath. It's in Ontario, California, 23 and 24. And the screening of Scream is Saturday, matinee, one time, one event, exclusive thing. I'm going to be the host of that. We're going to do a Q&A session with it. And then I'm going to, they gave me the whole day, so I'll be out there signing autographs and taking pictures and telling stories and meeting people. So it'll be a great one-day event for me and for the Scream Nation and horror fans in general, because they're not only going to be doing Scream on 16 mil. They have, I think, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. So I'm going to try,
Wow.
right? I'm going to I got to find out when that is. If it's like earlier in the day, I'm like, I got to be in the booth. And I'm like, because I'd love this. There's another one, right? Original film stock type stuff. I hadn't seen, once again, I hadn't seen that one in, in well, what was it, 84 when we shot that? 85 when it came out, maybe?
Yeah.
So decades since I've seen that film projected on film stock.
Wild.
Yeah, I want to be a part of that. I'm excited about doing that. It's a really cool thing. So then we bounce off of the Aftermath show. We're going to shoot out east, because I hadn't had any. My schedule this year has been all central. It's like we called it the Hot August Nights tour, because it starts, it's all central U.S. And then after that, we're going to bounce out to, I think the following weekend we go off to do Haunted Scream Expo, which is out in Hamilton, Virginia.
Oh,
Huge.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great little show this guy has going out there. Wasn't even on my radar, and I started calling him, goes, "Hey, you want to come to this?" I'm like, "Sure, sign me up." And it's more of it's really cool, because he keeps a super limited number of guests in there. But there's like a car show, there's bands, there's a makeup competition, like effects makeup, and it has all these different elements. It has like a maze for the kids, corn maze, so it's really a family-oriented thing, which I really love, right? And it's just 2 days of full throttle, crazy, fun time. So, it's fun because some cons are all about guests and autographs, and then, some cons are really not anti that, but there's a lot of cons that there's one out in California called Midsummer, Midnight Sight Scream, and it's like super vendor, super working show, and they have guests, but that's like a sideshow. They're like stuck in the corner, and everybody's over there just wanting to catch their vendors and see the latest and greatest, which is it's really
All
cool.
right. That's
I
awesome.
kind of like that. I love going to shows, and you guys have been to cons. when you're there doing signings, that's great, and I love that. That's my job, so to speak. That's my responsibility, and I'm passionate about it. I don't get a chance to actually go see the vendors like I want to. I can see them at the beginning before we open, maybe at night when we end, when everybody's gone. But man, I love going to a con and just being a fan, a horror fan, and just
Yeah,
through the vendors. And I'll do that occasionally if I'm in the right place at the right time. I could grab a ticket. I'll stand in line, get my ticket, and go be a horror fan. And just
you're
meet
a
cool
fan
guys.
too. Yeah,
You know, and like I said, I'm a definite fan. I started out on black and white horror, and then like during
absolutely.
the '80s, me and my buddies would either blow off school or right after school got out, we would go hit Blockbuster, man, just grab VHS by the brick and just go watch B horror, and just laugh and love it. And the cheesier it was, the more we loved it. Yeah, I love B horror
Yep.
movies to this day. I just, if it has bad effects, man, I'm on it, right? So I love that '80s. As much as horror as I've done per se, in the '90s, but I love '80s horror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
it's a
For
very
unique.
sure.
unique time frame, and love '80s horror.
Speaking of 80s horror, and you are also a stuntman, I've done a lot of interviews with actors and actresses who did horror films back in the 80s. And there was always a trend that I would kind of see in our discussions. It seems like the safety guards in the 80s were a lot more laxed than they are today. Did you kind of see that? I have a couple of examples. Let's see. The Lost Boys, the one made by Joel Schumacher, they actually had Kiefer Sutherland and all these teenage kids riding on these motorbikes through the woods and stuff. Like there was no stunt drivers or anything, so they were just kind of letting them have a ball and all that good stuff. That kind of blew my mind.
Uh, you know, I don't know if it was more lax per se because the stunt coordinators still did their
Sure.
job. Um, but here's the bottom line on it: it's insurance based, right?
Right.
You can't tear up your actors and actresses and shut down production for 6 weeks while they heal up from a broken
Right.
bone. I mean, and you can't have any, and you even if it's a minor injury, you kind of work around it. But it costs about $1 million a day to make a movie now, and you can't have torn up talent. That's not a way to make a movie. And the insurance companies, who like everything else in life, really run the program.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, you got to take care of those boys and girls in front of the camera, and I think it tightened up. And of course, there's pretty horrific accidents along the '80s and '90s, and that tore up some people, and so I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it also. But yeah, anytime, and I think you're seeing it a little bit more now, and you got to give credit to Tom Cruise. He does his own stunts, but he can do that. He's a producer,
Sure.
so he gets the pass. There's a few tricks in there that they know, and that's why he can get away with what he does because he's a producer. And as a producer, he's allowed to do whatever's necessary to get a better product. And and he's
Yeah.
he's a producer. He's a good, yeah, he gets away with it. And then the guy's a talent and a half. I would not want to stunt double him because he wouldn't make any money. What are you gonna do? Think about it. He does all his own stunts. Woo, there goes that 30,000. But I love it. I'm a big proponent. If you could safely put the actor in front of the camera and have him do um, action, not stunts per se, but just acting,
Sure.
action. Um, Stick them in there. You know, the more you get to see that person's face, the more realistic it is that something great's happening, and you can do it safely. And if it's just if the margins aren't there, like no, this isn't worth putting that person in there because they're going to break a toe. Okay, then put the stunt guy in there. That's the unsung part of it. I mean, it's not that we're expendable, but you wad up a stunt person, you still have your actor and actresses. They're still in one piece, and you could always get another double. That's just harsh reality. But you don't want that to happen. Nobody wants to be broke and have to go heal up for 6 weeks. But that you sign up for that when you go in the stunt department. That's part of the deal.
Speaking of signing up, you've been in the industry for decades now.
Yeah.
Any advice you have for anyone who aspires to get into stunt work, wants to be, behind the camera or choreographing uh, scenes, anything like that? What advice would you give them?
So if there's anything else you want to do in your life, go do it. If you cannot go through life without, if you can't breathe because you're not a stuntman or a stunt woman or a camera operator or whatever, and that is what your true passion is, then by all means you got to go for it. But if there's any other calling you might have, you ought to pursue that because there's no overnight sensations in Hollywood. It's a tough business. They eat their own young. You know, you have a huge amount of rejection, um, and it's just a tough business, and it's a flat out hustle. Unless you're going to sit there, like at one time, example given, at one time I worked 3 jobs at any given time for months just so I could have the income and flexibility to go hit sets all day long.
Wow.
Okay. And back in my day, I knew every studio and every back door and every way to get on. I knew all the tricks because we'd have to get on the studio lots and to go meet stunt coordinators, right? And
Right.
so we would, we'd get on the lots, and there was a lot of ways to do it back then. Because I had to go out and meet the stunt coordinator, or sometimes I'd want to meet a producer, maybe if I was trying to be a stunt coordinator, something like that. And it's a flat out hustle. You have
Yeah.
to, and no one's going to give it to you. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
as
true.
far as stunts, you better be a great athlete. You better have some air sense. You got to know where the ground's at. So you need to have a gymnastics, martial arts. Out in back in my day and time, guys would be known as just all around stunt guy, which is kind of what I did. Even though I had my specialties, guys now are just they're so talented. Those guys, but they're very specialized now. You might
Yeah.
have a guy or girl that just does nothing but wire work. You stick them on a wire and they're just incredible. You might have one guy that's just an absolute dynamite with a car, but don't put him on a horse. So I think today's stunt guys are much more specialized than they were back in my time.
Yeah.
Back back in my day, we had to do a little bit of everything.
Sure.
That's part of the one. Maybe that's one of the reasons I had a pretty good career is because I got to do a little bit of everything. If you're gonna get in the business, go for it 110%. Be able to sacrifice and be able to take rejection and just plan on 10-year overnight cessation. That's about where I was. So it took me about 10 years before I grabbed heavy traction and really started going at it.
Sound advice. Reach for the stars. Go for it. Take
Yeah,
risks. Go
yeah,
balls to the wall if you need to. Lee, want to thank you, man, so much for talking to us. If you want to follow Lee, if you want to catch him on his convention tour, or any of these other events he's been talking about, that showing of the 60 millimeter film of Scream 1996, follow him on Insta at the_Lee_Waddell, and be sure to catch him in a town or city near you. I did have one last question. It's a short one. It's a quick one. How many Funko Pops have you signed of Ghostface? Because I'm sure you're very aware that Ghostface is still
yeah. I'm
one of
sitting
the
there looking
most
at.
valuable Funkos.
It's funny you say that because I'm sitting here and I got like right off camera here because I'm in the studio and I mean there's stuff all over this place, but
Sure.
yeah, I got it. One, two, three. I got about 4 or 5 sitting over there, and then you
Whoa.
got you got Funko Pops, and you have the other the robots guys, right? Which is a version of they have their version now, and those are pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, the Funkos are getting kind of pricey, right?
It's close
Oh,
to
dude, that one specifically is
it's
ridiculous
close to
right now.
$5 these days.
Yeah, and same with what's some of the figurines like the what is it the
NECA?
NECA? Yeah,
Yeah.
some of those are getting really pricey now too.
They
And
just had a new line, and I was very impressed by this new line, and they had a few different horror villains, and they had a ghost face. I was really spot on. I was really impressed.
yeah, I think you're going to see it, especially with six coming out, and crushing at the box office. There'll be a resurgence of some of that stuff again. Um, and so yeah, those little Funkos, I love signing them in a sense that to tell the honest truth, they're a pain to sign, right? They really are. So unless here's how here's the insider. So everybody's watching this podcast. The pros, the autograph pros, right? They'll come up with the Funko or the robot, and they'll have it everything take. They'll bring you nothing but the box, right? But it's flat,
Mm.
so it's a lot easier to sign. Most people just bring me the whole box, pull it out, the figures in there, and everything, and you're trying to dance this pen and not screw it up. And I mean, so yeah, I've signed hundreds of those things, and I'm glad to. I love signing them, but boy, pricey. I get nervous signing that stuff now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We're gonna just
And
start. That's gonna be our currency in the future. Just like, hey, how many Ghostface Funkos you got? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a few of them. How many masks did I get? I probably got 30 of those things. I mean, there's all my good stuff's not even up on the wall right now. I got a Gen 2. I got my Gen 2 that I got from Scream 2. I got some really cool pieces, and it's not all on the wall. But yeah, I love signing that kind of stuff. I also like signing the artist stuff. And, people don't realize, like we were talking about earlier, when those people bring that hard-earned money to come out to get a poster signed, right?
Oh yeah.
So, you know, what a lot of people don't realize unless you're kind of in the horror signature game, you know, if you had, let's say we had an original Scream One poster by itself, it's they're not super rare, but to have a clean one, kind of harder to find,
Sure.
right? But then if you want to sit there and go, you know, good luck ever getting Drew to sign it because she doesn't sign. Not that she won't, she doesn't have time. Try to get a hold of her. She's flat out busy. Courtney Cox isn't out there very much often. David Arquette's not out there very often. Rose McGowan's out a little bit. Then you have Matt, and you have Skeet, and you got Jamie. Um, and so, if you just take leaving myself off because I don't, just take the actors, just the actors themselves. You got 6, 7 people right there.
Sure.
And that's a con ticket. So travels. I mean, because horror fans are nuts. We know that we travel all over the country, right? We're nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna fly someplace. You're gonna fix yourself up for the hotel for 2 or 3 days. You're gonna feed water. Then you're gonna buy the con ticket, and then you're gonna go stand in. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get 3 signatures on a weekend. That's if it's a 3-day con, right? Because those guys have huge lines, and rightfully so. But to stand in a line for 2+ hours, 3+ hours, you might get 2 signatures a day if you're lucky. So by the
You're right
time you
about
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
so by the time you see somebody's poster, and I've signed a couple of them that I'm like the last guy to sign it. And they have everybody. It's several thousands of dollars and several, probably righteously, a couple hundred hours to get to that point. To get these posters signed out by everybody you want to sign it to. So when
Die
I see
hard fans, baby.
Yeah, so when I see pieces like that and they want me to sign it, I'm all over that action. You know, what an honor to sign this final piece because I'm like the last guy they hadn't had on that thing. And
Incredible.
I really like signing iconic pieces where that person's been pushing for years. It takes years to get all these autographs together. You know, and they're going to come and see me. Heck yeah, I'm going to sign that sucker. Bring it over here, and I'll take a picture with it. I want to brag about that because you don't see that many pieces that have all the signatures. It's just super hard to come by these days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is
yeah. So
so
when I
true.
see pictures like that, and not even just a Scream one, it could be a Myers piece or a Jason piece or a Nightmare piece or whatever. When I see pieces that are really stacked, that's a dedicated, hardcore, crazy horror fan, and I love them. And so more power to it. This is what I love about the horror fans and being a horror fan myself. It's just a fun bunch of people, and they're crazy.
Absolutely
That is true.
crazy, devoted, passionate, and
All of
if you want to come see Lee, like I mentioned, be sure to follow him on Instagram, _Lee_Waddell. He's coming to a city in a town near you. Get those masks signed, get those
them.
posters signed, and if you got a Funko, make sure it's authentic, and go ahead and
Yeah.
get those signed as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So there
I've
you
seen
go.
a
Make sure you bring the box, have it all flattened out. It's easier to sign. You can put it back together when you get to your car. You know, don't have to worry about losing it and me screwing it up. And
sound advice. Just take the Funko out of the packaging
take it
and
out and
flatten it
flatten
out.
it out. It just makes signing it so much easier. And plus, you don't have to carry this big. Well, they're not big, but you don't have to carry the cube around with you all day. You know,
Absolutely.
so, hey guys, thanks again for having me out here. It's really cool, and I really appreciate it. It is an honor, and as much fun as we had, I'm totally blessed, and thank you so much. That's all I can say. I look forward to getting this out there and talking Scream stuff with all the Scream fans, the horror fans. It's all a good time, man.
Fantastic.
Dude, it's our honor to have you on here, man. Like I said, I appreciate you taking the time and answering my message and
Oh,
responding back
absolutely.
to us. And we really
So
appreciate it.
anytime, guys, let's do this again. Like, let's get together after 7 because 7's going to be shot here soon enough. We'll get together and we'll talk about 7.
Oh yeah,
Hells
definitely
yeah,
we
we're
could do that.
down.
Or when I'm on the, depending on where you guys are at, swing on by one of the cons and we'll get together. We'll sign some stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
you'll be in
we
Houston,
might
so
catch you in
that's about
Houston.
3 hours away from us.
Yeah, that's right. You're down south with me, because I live in Texas. I'm just out in Southern California right now filming.
Well, we live in Texas. Well, you live in Houston,
No,
right?
I'm up north there. I live out there towards Tyler.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're in San Antonio.
So yeah, come over and see me in Houston. Right, that's not too far.
Absolutely.
Right?
Not at
So,
all, not at all.
just reach
We
out to me. Let me know
appreciate it.
that. Reach out to me before time, and we'll carve out some time. We'll grab some coffee or something before it gets all crazy. Because once those things
Oh, dude, that'd be
once
freaking awesome.
as you guys know, and as all the horror fans know, the Scream Nation knows, once they open those doors, man,
It's
full
over.
throttle, crazy, fun times are to be had. Don't try to get scheduled time between like 9 a.m. and 7. It ain't gonna happen. But that's the beauty and the fun and the craziness of the horror con circuit. I love it. So thanks again,
Ab-
guys. Be safe. I'll see you in a couple of months. We'll get together down there in Houston. Have a good time. All
That'll
right,
work.
peace.
Appreciate it,
Love
boss.
you guys.
Have a
See
great
ya.
night. Later.
Later.
Bye.
Later.
Not scared, are you? Squeeze.